Each of you would ask these kind people to sit.
Folks, if you'd like to have a seat, and the two of you stand. Are you okay to stand, Neil?
Okay, friends, we're going to begin now. We could put all the coats on the floor. Yeah. So Richard, Neil's comfortable with it. You can actually take a seat.
Yes.
Where's the...
Unfortunately, it's not going to be, if you want to do in front of the camera, then you have to go back over by the
Are
podium.
you okay about being a little closer to the podium? So
Yes,
we
now
can-
that he's got,
I want to include Rachel and Dan, okay?
And we're going to go
So
right
we'll walk
this
over
way.
this way.
We're actually going to go behind the podium, okay? And that way Rachel
You
can
can even
see you
stay,
on the
yeah,
camera.
you can even stay right here.
All right? All right, very good.
Friends, as we're about to begin our service, I would like to invite Lorna's daughter, Rachel, who is in France, to please rise. And I'd also like to invite Lorna's brother, Dan, who is in California, if he's able to please rise. Rachel and Dan, if you have a piece of material or even a piece of paper to symbolically mark this morning, this moment on this morning, I'm going to invite you to join Neil and Julie at this time. These ribbons that you both wear are whole. We see that Neil and symbolically Dan have it on the right side, and Julie, you and your sister Rachel would have it on the left side over your heart. As we say, children come from the heart. These ribbons are whole, but in a moment they will be torn, serving as a symbolic reminder that something has been torn from you. Please repeat after me. Baruch
Baruch
atah
atah
Adonai
Adonai
Eloheinu
Eloheinu
melech
melech
haolam
haolam
dayan
dayan
ha'emet.
ha'emet.
Praised are you, Adonai, our God, creator of the universe, the righteous judge. Dan and Rachel, I invite you to make the tear.
Thank you. Okay.
I'll start when you guys are seated.
Okay. Oh, she's not gonna say it, but she's watching. Yeah.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar. Binot shayar bitzeni al me menuchot yanachaleni. Nafshi shovev. Yanacheni v'magle tzadek lema'an shemo. Gam ki chelech begetzal mavet. Lo irara ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantacha hemayenachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorirai. Tishanta vashemen roshi kosir vaya. Ach tov chesed yirdifuni kol yamei chayai. Vishaveti beveit Adonai lehorech yamim. Friends, I've chanted for you the words of our 23rd Psalm. In these moments, when our hearts are breaking and when we are in need of comfort and a sense of peace, we often turn to the psalmist. And so I invite you at this time to recite these words with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year, and when it ends, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us as we remember Lorna Myers. To you, Neil, her beloved husband, to her children, Rachel, who is in France, Julie, who is here with us, and to her other children, to Tim and to Rich, to her brother Dan, who is in California, and her sisters-in-law, Robin and Roberta, and to her grandchildren, Isaac, who is studying in England, to Charlie and Amelia, who are here, and to all the members of the family and so many dear friends, those of you who are here in person, those of you who could not join us simply because of the circumstances of the day, and to so many of you who are joining us together here from all over the country, from parts across the world. While you're here in this room, and those of you who are not in this room, please know we feel your presence as our hearts together join as we remember and celebrate the life of your beloved Lorna. Our sages, in their wisdom, taught us that birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, from childhood to maturity and from youth to age, from innocence to awareness and from ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then, perhaps, to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Lorna's beautiful journey began in Sussex, New Jersey. She was born in 1940 to Lucille and Betty Gordon. Lorna and her baby brother Dan grew up initially in Sussex until the family made the move to Plainfield, New Jersey, when Lorna was just 12 years old. Now, Plainfield was a town, a place, that would hold great significance to Lorna in the not-too-distant future. But we'll come back to that later. Throughout her youth and teen years, Lorna developed a great love for classical music. She played the piano and was quite good. Frequent trips to New York City provided many opportunities for Lorna to enjoy so many beautiful performances with her aunts at Carnegie Hall and other beautiful venues. Lorna was close with her parents, and her father, Kusil, who was originally from Poland at a time when it was part of Russia, her father was always an important figure and a guiding light in her life. He was fluent in Yiddish and Russian, and while he was a pharmacist, it was during the war that Kusil took on the important and crucial assignment of being an interpreter during those first meetings between the Russians and the Americans after the fall of Berlin. Lorna's dad was a major influence on her, and so when he was serving our country, he would send her postcards from all over Europe. And this sparked an interest, a fascination for travel with Lorna. At 16 years old, she embarked on a teen group bike trip that traveled throughout France and Spain and Italy. Following her graduation from Plainfield High School, Lorna matriculated to Skidmore College, where she majored in French and minored in music, specifically organ performance, a minor which provided Lorna the opportunity to pursue her deep passion for early music of the Baroque and Renaissance periods. Her intense love of travel and adventure guided her to spend her junior year abroad in Geneva, Switzerland. And now it was the summer, just before her senior year. Lorna was at home in Plainfield, preparing to return to Skidmore. And it was at this time in Plainfield that Lorna was introduced to you, Neil. A mutual friend wanted to fix the two of you up. The official first date, that occurred, of course, but the unofficial first date, which happened before the official first date. Somehow, she knew you played guitar, and I don't know if you offered or she asked first, but it involved a guitar lesson. Many of us women know that we are drawn to the guitar-playing guy, and Lorna was. But then there was that official first date, where you and Lorna went into the city, into New York, and the two of you visited the Frick Museum. As the summer drew to a close, Lorna returned to finish her studies at Skidmore, and Neil, you went to West Lafayette, Indiana, and this was where you began your career as a professor of English at Purdue. And it was sometime during that school year that Lorna came to visit you, Neil, for a weekend. By the time that weekend came to an end, it became very clear to you that she was the one, as we might say in Yiddish, your beschert, the one that was meant to be. And so about a year later, Neil, you and Lorna were married. It was June 24th, 1962, at Temple Shalom in Plainfield, New Jersey, with Rabbi Nathanson officiating. Neil, you and your beloved made your first home in West Lafayette, and the Purdue community was an excellent fit for you and Lorna. You made so many wonderful friends. The two of you became politically active in the peace movement, and you found yourselves drawn to the varied cultural offerings that surrounded you. Now, Lorna, I'm told, had a shyness about her, and she also had this amazing gift for friendship and cultivating friendships. In her own special way, she was outgoing, and with her magnetic personality, people were just drawn to her. Neil, I don't know if you were the one who made the harpsichord, but there was this, it wasn't you, but there was this homemade type of harpsichord in your home, and because of that, many of Lorna's musical friends were drawn to your home. They would come over and they would explore and engage in rehearsing many of those early classical works. Neil, as your career began to take flight, Lorna took on some part-time work on Purdue's campus. And this evolved into some full-time work with Purdue's Department of Convocation and Lectures. Lorna, a talented, intelligent, multifaceted woman, of course, was eventually appointed head of the department. And in her 18 years as the department head, Lorna oversaw all of the events: instrumental, vocal, dance, jazz, classical, theater, all of these amazing moments and performances that would take place. Lorna was the one who oversaw all of it. And not only did she make a name for herself, but she made great connections. Connections with artists of national and international fame. She even had Itzhak Perlman over to your house for a chicken dinner, twice. And like her father Kusil, Lorna, through all of this, as gifted as she was, she remained very humble. West Lafayette was the place where you, Neil, and your bride, you made your careers. But much more important as to how you and Lorna made a living, I want to talk about how you made a life. And it was here that you began a very beautiful life. When Rachel and Julie entered into this world, your Myers family portrait grew to be all the more special and beautiful and complete. In a moment, friends, her daughter Julie will share some words with us describing the mother that she and Rachel loved and admired and respected. And a mom that we'll learn is one who opened her daughter's eyes to the world, literally to the world. You see, one of the ways Lorna showed her children the world was through travel. And the Myers family spent that summer of 1974 for about 12 weeks in the south of France. It was a life-changing experience for the entire family. And it was during this spectacular adventure that Lorna got the idea. She began to dream about a time when she and Neil might one day have a house somewhere in France. Lorna, Neil, and the girls would continue to visit France frequently, usually every other summer. And finally, in 1997, Lorna and Neil found their dream vacation home in Nyons. And every year, for 2 to 4 months, up until 2012, they would find joy and peace in their beautiful home away from home. Rachel, you are with us from across the great pond, and we shared stories and memories yesterday via Zoom. I know your mom created this tranquil haven for you and your family in France. And as you shared with me, I'm quoting you, Rachel, you said, she opened the way to our home, your home, in France, the place now where you and Tim and your son, Isaac, where you have lived for so many years. It's a gift that she gave to you. When your mom retired in 2000, she and your father, they sold the house in West Lafayette, and they moved to Santa Rosa, California. They resided there from 2000 until 2019. How blessed were Lorna and Neil to find yet another warm and welcoming community, a place overflowing with dear friends and wonderful activities, and I'm certain many of those friends from West Lafayette and from California are with us today. This was a place where, Neil, you and Lorna, you found your way not only with a wonderful community of friends, but you became involved with members of Temple Shomrei Torah, the congregation where Lorna sang in the choir, and also became involved in this congregation's environmental committee. Of course she did. Lorna was blessed with much, so much in her 80 years. She was blessed with a marriage of nearly 60 years to you, Neil, her partner, her sweetheart, her very best friend. Lorna was blessed with 2 daughters whom she adored and who adored her. Blessed with a family, blessed with loving parents and her brother Dan and her sons-in-law Tom and Rich. And she was blessed with so many cherished friends from New Jersey and Indiana and California, and yes, also in France. She was blessed with a life filled with the riches of laughter and music and travel and so much love. But I have to say with some confidence, if Lorna had worn a crown, I think all of us could agree that the most precious gems in her crown were her grandchildren, Isaac, Charlie, and Amelia. Your Nana, to her, you three were her greatest joy. She loved when the three of you were able to visit her in California. She would go to great lengths to plan outings and day trips. Amelia, there were those special moments when you and your Nana could have girl time. And one of the times you remember is everybody else went to a ball game, I think, but you and your Nana went to the butterfly garden. And then she would bring you along. Maybe sometimes she would schlep you along. I'm not sure if you always were willing, but she would bring you along with her women's walking group. And with your Nana, maybe sometimes just the two of you, sometimes with the women's group, you would go walking through the park. And these were very special moments for the two of you. Charlie, from the time you were a toddler, you knew that Nana was an incredible cook. And your family knows that you understood this because every time you'd walk into her kitchen as a 2.5-year-old, you'd look at her and just say, "Nana, cook it." Charlie, you remember those visits to California when she would take the day trips to Redwood Forest or perhaps the Sonoma Coast area. And you remarked, as I know Amelia knows and Isaac, who is watching in England, that when you went to visit her, there was always a plan. There was always a well laid out plan, usually involving a picnic and a walk and then a trip to a special restaurant. And Isaac, while the miles may have been a little bit further between you and your Nana as opposed to Charlie and Amelia, it was only miles that separated the two of you, never the love in your heart. There was always that closeness, that warmth. And when Isaac and Charlie and Amelia would go visit their grandma, they could always bet that a perfect day would end with ice cream at Screaming Mimi's. Lorna and Neil made the move to Cleveland just last year as they prepared for the next chapter in their lives. And Neil, our hearts join with you as we acknowledge so sadly that this chapter was cut short. There's a poem by the Israeli poet Hannah Senesh, a Hungarian freedom fighter who escaped the Nazis, found her way to Israel, and was one of a few selected. She volunteered and was selected to paratroop back behind enemy lines where she was captured and tortured and killed. And while she perished at the tender age of 20 or 22 years old, her poetry, her words live on. And she wrote these words, Neil, Yesh kochavim she'oram magia artza. The poem tells us that when we look into the sky, we see that there are stars in the sky, and while these lights still burn brightly, we know the star itself has diminished. The poem reminds us that it's true with people in our life. There are some people, the special few, who even when they leave this earth, there is a brightness that still shines from them to us. And I think that that is true about Lorna, for you and for your children and your grandchildren, and for her dearest friends. Her light, while she's gone from this earth, has not diminished, nor will it ever diminish. We are told that words which come from the heart enter directly to the heart. At this time, I want to call on her daughter and son-in-law, Julie and Rich, who have some very special words to share with us.
I'm going to start with just reading an email that I got yesterday from my Uncle Dan in California. These are his words. To me, my view of your mother is a distant one. She was 8 years older. Some perspective. When I started kindergarten, she either started high school or was about to. When she started college, I was all of 9 or 10. She took after your grandfather. I took after your grandmother. She was a pre-war baby. I am 100% baby boomer. With that, I have a different view of her. We had bedrooms next to each other, but grew up on different continents. Her bedroom seemed like Paris. I grew up in North Jersey. You must understand that your mother was an early American globalization pioneer. She was about a quarter of a century ahead of her time. Little did I, her North Jersey cynical brother, why do you think so many comedians are from North Jersey, know my sister would prevail culturally and her conception of the world dominate socially and economically. Junior year in Geneva, no surprise. The most I could do is spread out maps of London on our North Jersey dining room floor. Your family sabbatical in Rome was a natural. Your mother and father drove me into the hills around Rome as if they were as familiar as the Watchung Mountains. Even an earlier sabbatical in San Francisco seemed like a foreign adventure to a North Jersey sensibility. At Purdue, Lorna brought the world to Northwest Indiana in her job. Most important of all, she left as her continuing mark on the world pure globalization. Julie lives with the universal language of music with her family. I know a narrow branch of that language, Motown. Rachel has fulfilled the dream of Lorna's childhood bedroom. She lives close to a train line to Paris with her family, who includes a European college student. It is trite to say a well-lived life. Instead, I, as a student of the old management by objective school, see Lorna as having a very successful life. So that's from Uncle Dan. The next thing, I think I'm just going to have to just read it, and Rich is going to help me. Yesterday, my dad and I just took some notes about and wrote down some thoughts and impressions of my mom. So for Dad, she was a lifelong partner. And for me, she was just an amazing mom and so caring. She taught by example so clearly. She had such clarity in her ethical behavior.
In the words of Neil, she had a deep underlying warmth, energy, and comprehension. In Neil's words, she was always there like a little furnace, always reliable, never failed.
She had sparkly eyes and a quiet presence. She never wanted to be the center of attention. Even as the director of Convos, she avoided being on stage. But when she had to, she was so engaging in a way that it seemed natural. She was someone who drew everyone's respect. Her attentiveness to detail, which seemed almost spiritual, was simply part of who she was. She wanted the sourdough bread from Stone Oven. She would go to 5 different stores in Santa Rosa to get fish from this person and berries from that person. She had a deep, tangible, powerful gift for lasting, lifelong, meaningful friendships, and always knew the gracious things to say, even in these last few weeks when she was struggling with the overwhelming forces that were arrayed within and against her. She thanked every nurse and aide and parking attendant. There was something profoundly, almost spiritually reliable about her. She was so down to earth and empathetic and compassionate. She was deeply distant from ego conflicts of the people around her. She was also very, very private, both humble and exacting in the way she saw things and what she wanted to do with them. As the cantor said, she always had a plan. She had a vision that made things easy for the people around. She was an incredible organizer and director. She was the central force for all of us around which everything revolved. She had a quiet magnetism like a planet.
Our dear friend John Kennedy summed her up perfectly. She was smart as hell, fierce, tender, and generous.
Well, thank you so much, Julie and Rich, for sharing those words. And thank you to Uncle Dan for writing his beautiful memories for Julie to share as well. At this time, friends, I want to call on her grandson, Charlie, who has something in his heart and soul. Musically, he wishes to share with us a piece composed by Mozart. Charlie, thank you for sharing that gift with all of us. Thank you for honoring your Nana in that way. In this moment, we declare Zichrona Livracha. We pray that the memory of Lorna Myers will always be our blessing. Friends, as you are able, I invite you to rise now for the memorial prayer, El Malei Rachamim, as we ask God to accept Lorna's soul. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Mamromim, Hamseimenu Chanechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'malot Kedoshim Alturim, Gezor Hararakia Masirim, Et Nishmat Yakirenu, Shahalacha Leolama Began Eden Techem Menuchata, Ana ba'aharachamim astirehu, b'seiter knafech leolamim, v'titzuror v'tzurarachayim et nishmata. Adonai hu nechalata v'tanoach b'shalom. Al mishkava v'nomar. Amen. O merciful God who dwells on high, who is full of compassion, grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament. To our dear departed Lorna Myers, who has gone now to her eternal home, may her soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. Grant that her memory inspire all of us to noble and consecrated living. And to this we say, Amen. Friends, our service will continue now at the Lakeview Cemetery. Anyone who is wishing to make a contribution in memory of Lorna, the family has suggested that you might consider the Santa Rosa Symphony of California. On behalf of Neil and the entire family, whether you are here in person or joining us through technology, we thank you for your love and support on this sad and important day. Thank you.